So I think what we had in the, and this is where the first and second understanding of the term Christian nationalism merged together in more than just a pragmatic way. What we had in the United States from the founding until relatively recently wasn't that dissimilar to what the Roman Empire had with Constantine. I mean, the emperor obviously had absolute despotic power in a way that the government, that nobody in the government or even the government taken as a whole necessarily had in the American state. But it worked the same way. Like the guy at the top was a Christian and things flowed down from there. So you had a government structure that was not explicitly Christian, like it didn't have anything about church attendance or doctrine or penalties, any special tax you had to pay if you were going to be a Jew or a Muslim instead of a Christian, or even if you're going to be a Lutheran instead of a Anglican or Congregationalist. It was a secular constitution, an Enlightenment constitution, but everybody who was running it was Christian. You had kind of the same thing in the Roman Empire, where you had a completely secular and even pagan constitution, for lack of a better word. They didn't really have a written constitution. And then you had the emperor, and he was a Christian. And for a moment, like in the middle of the 4th century, the emperor wasn't a Christian. You had Julian, who's remembered as the apostate, because his family was Christian, but he wasn't. He fell away from it. He wanted to bring back paganism, but he died in battle after a couple of years. And after that, it's like the emperor just was Christian from then on until the end of the Western Roman Empire. And until the fall of Constantinople in the East, the emperor was Christian. And that was all it took to take the pressure off the Christian church and to make sure that the Christian church would get some kind of favor from the state. So in early America, but before the 60s, so let's say, you had something like that. It was just a kinder, gentler form of government, something that had a lot of checks and balances. But if the vast majority of the people who were running it were either Christian or highly influenced by Christian culture and morals, then you would have a Christian government that even looked top down, but there was no requirement for it to be so. That's just how it had happened. And so it's sort of like the best of both worlds. You don't have to distinguish between these two things. Basically, what ended that, like for the Roman Empire and the Middle Ages, for European history, what ended that situation was the Reformation, because now you don't have just one church anymore in the West, and all of these individual princes and kings, they have to decide, well, which church am I going to be a part of? Which church am I going to support? They're loggerheads, they're at each other's throats, they're condemning each other. It's going to have to be one or the other. And if I show favor to the one, I can't show favor to the other. If I allow the one, I can't allow the other. And that is really what made the consensus splinter, which I'm not blaming on the Reformation the way a papist apologist would. And next time you hear a papist apologist do that, just point out that we wouldn't have had to have a Reformation in the first place if you guys hadn't been so corrupt and teaching such blasphemous doctrines. But that ended the consensus, and that led to freedom of religion as a desirable constitutional principle in the West, and to all of the other checks and balances and theories that went into the American Constitution and made it as good as it has been. And so to look back on that and say, well, that was good when we had that, let's get back there. It's like, well, how are you going to get back there? Are you going to do a time machine? It's like, if it is possible to get back there, it's by the first route and not the second route. It's by Christianity actually spreading, like real Christianity, robust biblical Christianity spreading in the populace again to get to that point where we can get back to how things were. You're not going to do it top down. because the only reason it happened top down in the first place was because that was the polity that everybody had had from time immemorial. We have an emperor, we have a king, whatever. That's the only reason that worked the first time.